Miguel Angel Asturias was born on October 19, 1899, at the turn of the century. Raised in Guatemala, he was exposed to a number of economic changes as well as social. He earned a law degree at the University of San Carlos, and he also wrote about social protests and the mysticism of the Maya. Miguel is most commonly known for his poetry, his novels, and his position as a diplomat. As a young adult, he moved to England to study political economics, and then 10 years later, he moved to Paris and continued to study ethnology. Ethnology is the study of multiple kinds of people and their differences of behavior towards each other. After studying so hard, Miguel became Professor George Rayonada's disciple. Inspired by his knowledge of the law, Miguel became a militant surrealist under the influence of the French poet and movement leader André Breton. Miguel served as a correspondent for several Latin American newspapers, which allowed him to travel to all the Western European countries, Middle East, Greece, and even Egypt. While in Paris, he wrote the novel El Señor Presidente, but unfortunately, he was unable to bring the book back into Guatemala due to laws that ban that type of context.
At the time, Guatemala was under the rule of leader Jorge Ubico. The book remained unpublished for 13 years. Miguel returned to Guatemala in 1928 and lectured frequently at local universities. These lectures were collected into a volume entitled La Arquitectura de la Vida Nueva. Now, back in Guatemala, Miguel helped found the popular University of Guatemala. This university was dedicated to helping those not fortunate enough to afford college. Thousands could now earn a college education with Miguel's help. Soon after Miguel returned to Paris, he finished his novel Leyendas de Guatemala, which had become his first major work. His novel was published in Madrid and was translated to French. It received the Cia Monsegur Prize for Best Spanish American Book published in France. At the fall of the Guatemalan leader Ubico's regime, a democracy was born and President Juan José was elected. President José appointed Miguel as cultural attaché to the Guatemalan embassy in Mexico, where his novel El Señor Presidente was finally published in 1946.
In 1947, he went to Argentina to represent Guatemala at the embassy. After being there for 2 years, he had obtained a ministerial post. All the while, Miguel continued his writing. In 1949, he published Cien de Alondra, which was an anthology of his poems written between 1918 and 1948. After serving time in his ministerial post, Miguel moved back to Guatemala and wrote his novel Viento Fuerte. In the same year, he also published the second edition of El Señor Presidente. In 1954, Jacobo Arbenez Guzman's presidency was overthrown. Miguel was exiled to Argentina by the new regime, and he remained there until 1962. A year later, publisher Losada released Miguel's novel Mulata de Tal. In 1966, Miguel was awarded the Soviet Union's Lenin Peace Prize. In the same year, he was appointed ambassador to France. In 1967, Miguel was given the Nobel Prize in Literature. He died 7 years later on June 9, 1974, at the age of 85. Miguel is still recognized for the work he has done and everything he has contributed to the world throughout his life.